What's up guys, welcome back to Inside Out Precision. Brand new bow today. This is the PSE Mach 34. We just got this in. I think most dealers got these today or will in the next couple days, but I figured I'd throw this thing together and get a review going. Lots of cool new features on this bow. I'm really excited about it. I love my EVL 34. I really like the specs on it and everything. You know, I've never owned a carbon bow, actually. This one might change that, we'll see. But we're gonna do the usual review today. So specs, new features, as well as a speed test. With the one they sent us, this is the E2 cam, and I'll get into the different cams in a minute here. I can't go below 29 inches, so I'm gonna do the speed test at 30 inches, give you an idea of, you know, what it can do. And yeah, we got arrows ranging from, you know, 525 down to like 405 grains, so got a good wide range there. And I'm pretty excited for this. I think they've done a good job at listening to what the consumers want. They've always made a good bow. There were just some things when it came to tuning that made them kind of a pain in the butt, just in terms of the shim system, and they have alleviated that. Before I get into all that, we'll go over the specs. So as the name would suggest, this is a 34-inch axle-to-axle bow. It IBOs at 335. This is a 70-pound model. I have it on 85% let off. You are able to go between 90, 85, and 80% let off, like on all their cam systems, just with this little wing here right on the end of the module. Has a brace height of basically 7 inches. It says 7.125, but that's basically the same as 7. It weighs by itself, it's basically 3.7 pounds. It's like just over, it's between 3.6 and 3.7 pounds. So extremely lightweight on its own. You will probably want to put some stabilizer weight on there to alleviate, you know, some of that shock, and obviously help the bow aim. Really light bows are nice to pack, but they're not that nice to shoot generally because they tend to walk on the target a little bit. But like I said, you can leverage that with some stabilizer weight and still be a full pound less than any aluminum bow on the market pretty much. They come in a variety of different colors as well as cam configurations. So let's get into the cams. Like I said, this is the E2 cam. This is the same cam that they had on the Levitate and like the XF33 last year and the 30. You can get it in the S2. So this cam, the E2, will go from 29 to 33 inches. So for those of you who are long draw guys, here's your bow. The S2 cam, I can't remember exactly. I want to say it goes like 25.5 to 31 or 26.5 to 31. You can also get this with the Evolve cam. Now the Evolve cam is the cam that's been on like the whole EVL series, the original Mach series. They've had the Evolve cam for a while. I really like the draw cycle of the Evolve cam personally compared to these E2 and S2 cams. It's not quite as fast. When I do get those in today, I just have this one. The other ones should be here tomorrow. I will make an update on here with those different bows or those different cams at the same specs. If I had to guess, you know, the S2 cam is probably going to be faster because you're going to be closer to, at 30 inches, you'll be closer to the top end of the draw length range as opposed to this one where I'm only an inch above the bottom of the draw length range. But this bow still IBOs at 335 feet a second, and IBO is always done at 30 inches. So really good, well, I wouldn't say really good speed. Very average to good speed for a 34-inch axle-to-axle bow. Personally, I think speed is kind of irrelevant these days in terms of, you know, all bows are fast. Some are a little bit faster than others, but I mean, you look at any flagship bow across the board, no matter what the brand is, they're all gonna be somewhere in that like 330 to 350 range, which is fast. So, couple new features that I really like about this. You'll notice, well, first off, we'll get to the riser. So the riser is basically a Levitate riser. It's got a little less reflex in it. If you're not familiar with reflex or what that term is referring to, that is the distance from the end of the limb pocket here to the grip. The more reflex a bow has, the easier it is to torque, meaning, like, let's say I have, you know, a pound of grip pressure on one side of that grip. A bow with 3 or 4 or 5 inches of reflex is going to torque more with that same amount of grip pressure than a bow with you know, 2 inches of reflex or 1.5 inches. Now, 1.5 inches is really low. That's why you see target bows generally have a really straight riser, because in target archery, speed doesn't really mean a whole lot. You want forgiveness. So that reflex is also what gives you your brace height. So like I said, this has a 7-inch brace height. That's a very forgiving brace height. Without getting too much into the brace height side of things, you know, lots of people think it's because the arrow gets off the string quicker, which is what makes it more forgiving. That's not the case. What makes it more forgiving is what I was talking about with the reflex. A riser with less reflex increases your brace height, as well as reduces the variation you'll see in point of impact due to torque. So this is gonna be a really forgiving bow while maintaining really good speed. Now, probably my favorite thing that they did this year, and this comes from like a bow technician standpoint, is on the cams here. So in the past, PSE, they use a shim system. Most of the bows, you know, like the EVL series and even some of the Levitates, they seem to alleviate it a little bit with the Levitates, but when you just take them out of the box from the factory on a right-handed bow, you know, 80% of the time you get like 1.5 inch to 2 inch tail right tear. Now, in order to alleviate that, you would use the shims. Just like Matthews has their top hats, you know, you would push the cam towards the tear. So I'd push the cam to the right. Instead of having like multiple sizes of single spacers that you could use, PSE was using like 3 or 4 little shims on one side and like 1 or 2 on the other side. And it was such a pain to move those shims. You basically had to put the bow in the press, take the strings off, relax the limbs, pull the bow out of the press, pull the limb off, pull the axle, swap the spacers, put it all back together, repress it, restring it, the whole thing. So it should have taken 35 seconds, like on a Matthews, took, you know, 15 minutes. Now, if you're working at home, sure, I'm sure you have 15 minutes. You know, from a pro shop standpoint, you know, on a Saturday when we got 30, 40 people in line here waiting for their bows to get tuned, that 15 minutes starts to add up really, really quick. This year, they have alleviated that. They listened to the consumers and they went with their version of like a top hat or a spacer system. So you can see on the axles here, these little black spacers. So there's a thick one and a thin one, and they actually just clip in. And this is kind of a hard angle to show. But you can see these little like wings right here. So those actually just clip right onto the axle. My first thought was was like, great, they're gonna freaking fall off when you're shooting. But they also changed up their axle system. So they now have a bolt-in axle. So you can see that little torque wrench right there, as opposed to the standard axle with a C-clip. So once you get those clipped into place, which they're really easy to remove as well. I'll show you here. You know, you put the bow in the press, you press it, you just relieve a little bit of tension out of these axle screws, and then you can see on the, it's hard to see on this, right on the underside of this right here, there's a little hole in that clip, and you can just put a little Allen wrench in there and just pop it right off. Then you can swap them, clip them back in, tighten up the axle again, and now they're clipped on, as well as, you know, there's pressure on either side of them from the limb, and I don't think they're gonna fall out. Time will tell. Like I said, this is brand new. But that is huge for me in terms of tuning, because now I can tune in, you know, I can swap these in a minute or less based on the tear that I'm getting, and I don't have to pull the whole bow apart. I will say, so we literally slapped this together, and there's nothing fancy on this. This is like a little AAE Hawkeye rest, little trophy ridge sight. All I did was, you know, set the timing, which was basically right on from the factory, you know, leveled the arrow through the burger hole, and it shot like maybe 1/8 of an inch tail left. So shot really, really good. I didn't shoot it because I'm left-handed, but I had Trent shoot it. And you know, Trent's a great shooter. So he shot it through paper, and it shot a really, really good hole for him. When it comes to the actual like shooting of the bow, so Trent shot this for a little while today. It's hard for me being left-handed to shoot a right-handed bow and get any sense of how it actually aims or anything. He said it held really, really well. It does have a little bit of a thump to it. I mean, it's not bad, but that just comes with the territory with a super light bow. There's not vibration. It's just you feel those cams when they when they come to rest. They kind of thump. But it's not bad. And honestly, the more weight you put on this bow in terms of stabilizers, the less and less that's gonna get. Another cool feature of this, which you can see here, they finally put this little integrated dovetail mount here, which has been on their aluminum bows, but hasn't been on their carbon bows. So you can use like the, QAD makes the same rest for Matthews, Hoyt, and PSE. Soon, and I don't know, we haven't gotten it yet, but Hamskea is also making a bracket that will mount directly to this dovetail, as opposed to like the Epsilon. Right now it still requires a mount that mounts behind this. It stays in line, but it doesn't actually mount to that dovetail. Hamskea apparently is coming out with one that will mount directly to this dovetail pretty soon, so that's awesome. Actually, I don't know if that's called a dovetail. It's just this little, it's that bracket right there. I don't even know what that's called. I think a dovetail is like the the sight bar. Anyway, so some cool new features. Just like on the Levitate, they mounted the cable guard here on the side of the bow, which is awesome because a lot of people on the Mach series, when it mounted into the riser, they'd really crank that screw down and it would crack the riser right there. They don't seem to have any issues anymore with these risers. They've changed up their carbon. They call it the DFC technology. It's, what does that mean? It's like the, I don't know, dead something carbon technology. It says here somewhere. I should know this. Well, anyway, dead frequency carbon. That's what it's called. I don't know what that means, but it seems to work well. So yeah, I really like this. Like I said, I've shot it a little bit. It feels, this cam has a little bit stiffer draw cycle. It has a little hump right at the end of it, whereas the Evolve cam, I feel, doesn't as much. But I love my EVL 34. I've been shooting it a bunch. I hunted with my Matthews all year. All things being equal, the Matthews was just a little bit quieter. I wouldn't say I necessarily shoot one better over the other, but the EVL is just such a clean shooting, good holding bow, that if I was gonna buy a carbon bow, I'd be seriously looking at this. So I'll quit boring you with all the specs here. I wanna go shoot this and see what kind of speeds it can produce. I think usually PSE over delivers a little bit. They're usually ahead of what they're actually rated at. So yeah, I'm excited to see what it'll do. And let me go get the chronograph set up and we'll sling some slivers through this thing. Okay, so before we get rolling here, sorry my cheeks are so rosy. It's like 80 degrees in this shop right now. Before we get started, I wanna show you the hole that we shot. So this was it right here. I mean, a lot of people are gonna say that's a bullet hole. It's a touch left, like I said, like 1/8 of an inch. And honestly, I don't think I'd mess with the shims for that. I would just probably bump the rest like 1/16 of an inch to the right and call it good. So anyway, I'm gonna move that paper out of the way, get this stuff set up, and we'll shoot some arrows. All right, so we got the chrono set up here. I'm gonna start heaviest to lightest. First arrow is 526. Again, I'm left-handed shooting this bow right-handed, so excuse my disgusting draw. And you probably won't be able to see it anyway. So this is 526, 70 pounds, 30 inches at 85% let off. That actually draws way smoother than the Levitate. I hate to say it. 265. This next one is 485 grains. It actually draws nice. And even right-handed, it's smooth. So 281 with the 405 grain arrow, or 485 grain arrow. That's good speed. Like I said, I think the S2 cam, you'd see about a 10 or 12 foot a second jump with that same arrow. But like I said, we're at the bottom end of the draw length range on this. This next one is a 465 grain arrow. It's really quiet. It's a really quiet bow for for being so light. .288, so that's what, you know, that's not a lot of difference in arrow weight, so 7 foot a second jump. This is a 440 grain arrow. Pretty common hunting weight. .293, I mean, that's smoking for a 440 grain arrow. And then this is a 404 grain arrow, so I'm expecting 300 plus with this guy. And it just broke in half when it hit that target. Holy crap. That is super lucky that I did not just send that right through my forearm. Whoo! It stuck in the target. It said 307. Let's try that again. Sorry, that gave it an error. That said 197. It's definitely not 197. So now I have an even lighter arrow. This one is not broken. So let's shoot this one. So this is a 380 grain arrow. .382 to be exact. .304. So that's fast. I honestly, it's weird. Even though it's the same cam that's on the Levitate, I think just with this different riser design, it draws much smoother. It doesn't have that hump right at the back like the Levitate had. I'm really impressed with this. I really hope we get one in left-handed soon so I can feel how the bow actually like aims and holds. But it feels really solid. It draws smooth. You know, if I had to guess on those speeds with the S2 cam at this same length, I'm gonna say they're probably all gonna increase by, you know, 8 to 10 feet a second. Again, all those speeds are good speeds. They're not like blowing out of the water fast or anything, but they're fast. It's gonna kill. It's a lightweight bow. If you are a longer draw guy, if you're 29 inches and over, I highly would recommend trying to shoot one of these. Especially if you're out west here, you know, we tend to like to shoot a little bit longer distances. Most of our practice is at 50 and 60 yards versus, you know, 20 and 30 yards. If you're sitting in a tree stand, you know, personally, I don't really hunt out of tree stands. I've never been in a situation where I'm shooting in steep stuff where I've had a longbow get in my way at all. But, you know, I know, you know, they still make the Levitate, which is a 32 inch, and they've got the, well, last year's bow, like the XF30. So they got a wide range of options for you guys. But definitely check this out. Like I said, lots of cool new features. I'm really excited for this new tuning system. I think they've really improved on everything. It's quieter, it draws smoother. You know, that integrated rest mount there, just a cool bow. So head down to your local dealer, give one of these a whirl. I think you'll be really impressed. I was shocked at how quiet it was. And the thump, you know, that was my first time shooting it. That little thump, it's not bad at all. Like Trent was making it sound like, oh, it thumps you pretty good, and it really doesn't. So I'm really impressed with it. I think it's a sweet shooting bow. You know, for a long time, I've always said, you know, like Hoyt is kind of the only carbon bow that I would trust. I'm curious to see, I know there's guys that are gonna order these in 80. I'm curious to see how they tune up in 80 pounds. Like I said, we had a lot of issues with the original Mach 1 in the 80 pound models, especially at longer draw lengths. If a guy had a 30 and a half inch draw length at 80 pounds, the tuning was just so squirrely on it. But it seems like they've alleviated that with this model. So again, PSE Mach 34, go try one out. I think you'll like it. Thanks for watching again. Remember, precision is a decision. Keep them in the middle. I'll see you on the range.